We're very excited to welcome Rabbi Boruch Ber, the founder and head of Achiezer, the great community organization serving the 5 towns Far Rockaway community. Rabbi Bender is a well-known Askan in the community. He's one of the go-to people for me personally, someone who needs really no introduction to Klal Yisrael. He's part of this incredible group of people you call when a Jew is in trouble. And so if we're talking about safety, we're talking about making sure that the community has the information it needs in order to have the great summer and the safe summer that we all want. Rabbi Bender is certainly an authority on many of the issues that we have been talking about and we will continue to talk about. So without further ado, Rabbi Bender, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Chaskel, for that beautiful introduction. It's an honor to be here. I think that certainly someone like yourself is the perfect person to be in this chair, honestly, because you've been at the forefront of so many of our community's issues in good times, in bad times. You've been that face of our community, both in the Brooklyn community, the Lakewood community, certainly our community, the 5 towns community. And the second this idea came up, that we need to promote extreme awareness regarding safety issues, specifically in the country, where it seems like every year thousands more people keep going there. Every year another bungalow colony is opening up. And there are just so many close calls, near misses, and unfortunately heartbreaking stories that happen each summer. And we know that they're Rabbi Shalom Fear the Welt, and we can't control the world, but honestly, I jumped at this opportunity because if the talks that we have today, Catskills, save one life, and it's very possible that we'll never know. You don't hear about the near misses. My amazing father, Rabbi Bender Shlita, always talks about that we hear about the tragedies. We don't hear about the lives that we saved because they never make the headlines. But if these conversations save one child, one adult in the upcoming summer, then the trip on the turnpike here, which was a pain in the neck and a lot of traffic, will definitely have been worth it.
So we're both Hatzalah members. We've been doing this for a long time outside of our other communal Askanis work. At the very core of who I am, and I'll let you say for what you are, but at the very core of what makes me tick and what the blood that beats in my heart is my work together with Hatzalah, Baruch Hashem, coming into my 33rd year. I know that you're in your 19th year, Baruch Hashem. So we're no strangers to what it means to be proactive, to get ahead of problems, to try to be prepared, and to care about safety. So in our world, maybe the public doesn't know this, but we have something called CMEs. What's a CME?
The CME stands for Continuing Medical Education. And whether you're in Hatzalah for 2 years, 2 months, or for how many years now, Catskills?
33, Baruch
Or
Hashem.
33 years, it's something that as Hatzalah members, whether you're in New York, whether you're in Florida, whether you're in New Jersey, or wherever else, Hatzalah is everywhere now, it's something that you're required to do. And a CME, in layman's terms, are amazing classes and lectures by renowned doctors of every field, which help make sure that we as Hatzalah members keep our practices, our specialties, our techniques up to par in the umptieth degree. And I will go back to the first thing you said, is that forget Achiezer, forget family lineage and Darchei Torah in my blood and all of that, all the community work. But at heart, I'm a Hatzalah member first, and it's something that it's part of my life, it's part of the life of my wife and my kids, and it's the way I was raised. When my father started Hatzalah first in Brooklyn, then in the 5 towns, the images of him running out the door with his 88 Oldsmobile with a little cherry on top. And yes, he actually did run on calls for many years. That's how I was raised. And I don't know a different life, a life that doesn't include that when someone is hurt or if Chas v'shalom there's an accident, we run. A lot of Askanis, unfortunately, happens later on in certain stories. But Hatzalah is where it all starts.
So for you and for me, you're the son of a legend. I'm a Talmud of a legend. Rab David Trenk was my Rebbe, is still very much so teaching me every day, although he's not here physically. is a partner and a dearest friend of Rabbi Bender. So for us, growing up, Rabbi Bender, Rabbi Uncle Bender, who is still known as RL5, he could be the Rosh Yeshiva of one of the largest yeshivas in America and one of the most respected and renowned mechanchim. But at the very heart of who Rabbi Bender is, he's the founder of both Flatbush Hatzalah, one of the founders of the Rockaway Lawrence Hatzalah. So Rabbi Bender, in his very essence, is Hatzalah member and par excellence mechanech.
Wait, is still a current EMT?
Certified?
Oh, certified EMT.
That's very impressive.
Refreshers coming next year.
So for us, why I speak about continuous medical education is because no matter how, and you said it so well, no matter how experienced a person might be, a member, Hatzalah member, an EMT, a paramedic, they may have gone on tens of thousands of calls and most likely have. They are still required to get certified every 3 years in New York. In Florida, it's every 2 years. And they're also required, as part of that certification, to go to certain amount of classes, both in-person classes and actually hands-on training. And so why I bring this up here now is because I would like to consider this conversation for the general public that will be watching this as continuous medical education. A lot of the things that we will be discussing throughout today with you and with some of the other guests that I'll be discussing are common sense issues. Being safe, walking on the street with care in a country environment, making sure that if you're wearing black clothing that a car cannot see you, to wear something reflective. It sounds easy, aleph beis, but you know what? It needs to be reminded. Pool safety, as an example. Rabbi Bender, let's get right into it. Continuous medical education. Would you allow your family to go to a country environment, a camp, a bungalow colony, a hotel, without a lifeguard at a pool?
Of course not. Never.
What is the most important thing and the most important responsibility of anyone who attends a bungalow colony and allows their children to go to a pool?
You can't go to a pool that's not supervised. You can't go to a pool that doesn't have supervision, that doesn't have lifeguards. And it's l'haragayavar. And it's shocking to me, that there are still there's probably thousands of pools in the Catskills today. Thousands, is that an exaggeration? Across all bungalow colonies and across all camps. And that there are hours that there are not lifeguards. And, there's signs just like you go to certain hotels, right? And it says lifeguard on duty until 4 p.m. and then you're on your own. And I think that to allow, forget, adults, which certainly shouldn't either, but to allow our children to enter a pool area.
I would stop you and say, not only children, but adults.
100%. How many emergencies have there been, if we would line up Hatzalah members here, of adults that have gotten into medical issues while they're in the pool? And there are many adults listening to this, and they will look at it and say, yeah, why am I even bothering to listen? That they'll go swimming on their own, a quick late Erev Shabbos dip, maybe use it as a mikveh, whatever it may be, and there is nobody in sight. Nobody. And you just need one single time for something to happen, and there's no one there to help Chalila.
So as Hatzalah members, there are 2 or 3 things I want to discuss. We have gotten, unfortunately, you and I, and you have been a hero in this field of autopsy prevention, dealing with law enforcement, dealing with so many different issues over the years. We've collaborated and so many times, and such unfortunate things. Let's get ahead of some of the issues. We're talking about pools now. So in my experience, where I come from, I cannot fathom the idea that any parent anywhere would allow any of their children to walk into a pool area that is not supervised. And I would go as far as to say is that you are taking the lives of your children in your hands, and you are chas v'chalila creating an unnecessary catastrophe if you would allow to do something like that. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to a pool, there has to be a phone at a pool, because Rahmanul Islan, you have to know the address of the location of the pool, and you have to have a phone at the pool. And I'm being in the Catskills myself for at least the last 40 plus years. I went to Camp Monk in 1979, so I've been there literally my whole life. The idea that a pool should be not taken as seriously as anything else in your life, to me, is extremely alarming.
I'm going to work backwards. Number two, it's more than alarming. I can tell you it's terrifying that most bungalow colonies, and not to name anything specific, don't have phones affixed, in one spot. A, in a prominent spot. B, did you check that it's even working? There are so many cheap, affordable, easy ways to do this. Phones that you could pick up, just like the olden days in Mir Yeshiva, like the red phone in the back that my father and Rabbi Zevitrenk used to run out and pick up. You just pick it up and it dials directly into Hatzalah.
And it has caller ID already pre-programmed.
It has everything. It has locations. There are people like Aaron Rothman from Flatbush Hatzalah who spend...
Paramedic.
Yeah, paramedic Aaron Rothman, who's been on... I'm sure he can sit here for days, who has prepared a huge amount of information with mapping and phone numbers so that when you pick up the phone, Hatzalah knows where to find you. But like you said, how many times have there been an emergency and all of a sudden it's time to call, and yes, it's 2025, and this one's phone is in his slippers, and this one's phone is somewhere else, and the amount of time that we have to work with as a Hatzalah member, or as anybody, is so minimal. With a child, even less, and it's unconscionable that we wouldn't have a plan in place for that.
In a drowning, let's get to some technical skills. In a drowning call, you remember the statistics? First of all, before we even get to the statistics, number one cause of death in children under the age of 10 in the United States of America is
accidental drownings.
Is drowning. That's number one. I know all of this because I spent a considerable amount of time in Florida. There are a number of pools. And in Florida, we've made an effort in Hatzalah, South Florida, to make sure that people know their locations and know exactly the address of where they're calling from, because not everybody knows the address of the pool that they're calling from. God forbid you should need Hatzalah. So that's the first concern about making sure that there's a pool, that there is a lifeguard, there's a phone, and now the third component that, in my experience, there should be access to an automatic, semi-automatic defibrillator. Explain.
So I'm going to back up on the item you mentioned previously. The worst part of my job, life, or Askanis, if you will, and this extends to my wife and my children, is certainly what you mentioned, is the death part of it, is going back to autopsies and dealing with that. It's just the most horrific thing that anyone could be tasked with. I've learned so much of what I do in that area from Rabbi Meyer Olav Shalom, and the legend of our time in this area. Used to see it on his face if you ever dealt with him during such a situation. The pain, it wasn't a job for him. The pain etched in his face of having to go deal with a medical examiner, deal with a family, notify a family, which keeps bringing me back to this point. I'm sorry if it's repetitive. If we save one life here, one family from having to walk into such a situation, we have to. But back to your other point, automatic external defibrillators, AED, are an amazing item. When a person drowns, Khalila, or a person collapses, has a cardiac arrest, they have 3 minutes, 4 minutes, if you start reading the statistics, maybe up to 6 without oxygen. Defibrillators save a tremendous amount of lives. I don't have that statistic in front of me. Anyone listening can look it up. Hundreds of thousands of lives are saved. And that's why now when you go to shul, would you see a shul without it? You wouldn't, right? Would you see an airport without it? A hotel without it? You wouldn't. And in a pool, we don't have one. If you can get that defibrillator, which literally will shock the person out of a lethal heart rhythm, a heart rhythm that's not working, or no heart rhythm, well, no is even worse. But if we can get that defibrillator onto a patient within seconds, yes, Hatzalah is the greatest gift to Klal Yisrael, bar none. And they get there before you could blink. But they still have to get there.
But in the country, every call, the distance between where a Hatzalah member might be, we're not talking about Brooklyn. We're not talking about Far Rockaway. We're talking about possibly a mile, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. It could be 5, 6, 7. Who knows?
And try working your way through Woodburn on a Sunday morning, right? Or on a Sunday afternoon when there's 800 cars in front of you. You can have all the lights and sirens in the world. Having a defibrillator, which my understanding, by the way, and please don't quote me exactly, used to be many thousands of dollars. It's
less than $2,000.
It's way more affordable than it used to be. Go make an appeal in your shul the first week of the summer if you don't have one. Get it, hang it up, put it in a prominent place.
We're talking about whose responsibility is it to make sure that a pool is safe in your bungalow colony. Whose responsibility is it? Is it the manager's responsibility? Is it the operator's responsibility? In your opinion, whose responsibility is it?
It's everyone's
It's
responsibility.
everyone's responsibility to make sure that your pool is safe. And putting it off on someone else, like so many other things we do, blaming someone else after the fact, people will not forgive themselves.
I want to tell you, last summer, and Baruch Hashem, this was a near miss. Some near misses we hear about. There was a bungalow colony, great bungalow colony, and they instituted a great system where they have double doors. The first door has some sort of a keypad, second door has a lock, whatever it may be. And after this story happened, we found out the details. But leading up to it, basically one of the doors wasn't closing properly. So a guy walked out one day, pushed it shut. You needs some WD-40s. That's still a thing. You spray it, make sure it's closed. And they closed it. And a couple of people noticed it. I spoke to those people after the story. And yeah, they figured, okay, management's going to take care of it. I'm not a fixer, man.
Somebody else's problem.
Yeah, I don't know if someone else's problem, but I'm sure that people who need to know or will know. And as it went on, the door was eventually not closing. Second door had an issue. And then as it happened one day, I don't remember what day of the week it is. This was last summer, 2024, in Fallsburg, New York. All right. And the door was left open. And Kachaya, that day, a couple hours later, a 3-year-old kid was missing. How do I know this 3-year-old people? Because they're people that live in my community. And the 3-year-old child wandered around up and down, and eventually he found an open door to a pool. This is in 1980, 1984, 1964, 2024. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. This is a near miss we can talk about. But I shudder that this child was found literally on the steps of the pool, a 3-year-old. Think about it. If you have a 3-year-old, I have a 3-year-old.
Horrific.
And I can't even breathe talking about this story. Right. And he was seconds, not minutes, seconds away. So to your point, whose responsibility is it to make sure that these things are all done? Everybody. Everyone. And I hate to sound like the MTA train man, see something, say something, but I'm not embarrassed to say it. If you're not sure, and whether you are a plumber at home, whether you are a lawyer, whether you are a healthcare person, and whether you have $0 or millions of dollars, if you're not sure, take the 5 seconds it takes to make sure. Because that kid could have been anyone's child, and that kid could have been another horrific statistic of pool emergencies.
So we have 4 takeaways on pool safety for the community as the upcoming summer begins. Number 1, lifeguards. Number 2, a phone at the pool. Number 3, a defibrillator at the pool or near the pool. And number 4, and probably as important or more important than anything else, making sure that that pool is locked at all times. And that door has an automatic pull string that makes sure that that door locks and stays closed.
And the amazing part about all 4 of those things, they're all attainable. None of them cost tens of thousands of dollars.
Correct.
None of them are, I can't take care of it this summer, maybe next summer, I need a capital campaign, the colony doesn't have money for it. Nothing you just mentioned, Catskills, is not something that can easily be accomplished. And for this year, the reason why we're doing this now on June 18th, it is today, because you know what? The idea came up, and this isn't something we can push off.
Safety, safety, safety. Let's continue. Let's talk about golf carts. One of my pet peeves. Let's go back for a moment. We wish everybody well. Summer's coming. It's a great time. Everybody gets to unwind. It's a cold, long winter.
Nothing like it.
Everybody's excited. Everybody's looking forward to it. People are in a great mood. The kids are pumped up. School's over. Camp is coming. Bungalow colonies are coming. It's a wonderful time. And in that wonderful time, we sort of let our guard down. We sort of let loose. Everybody's a little bit more relaxed. Hatzalah is not more relaxed. On the contrary, Hatzalah is gearing up because they know what's coming.
For weeks already,
But
in meetings.
Yeah, for sure. But the community sort of lets their internal guards down. We're going out of our city dwelling. We're going out of our regular confines, our regular homes, our regular neighborhoods. We're going to the country. We're getting out. When you go to the country, that letting of the guard down, even for a moment, can prove catastrophic. So let's talk about this new phenomenon. 2 of them I'll give you. Number 1, golf carts, which is not a new phenomenon. And number 2, I know something your father, so sein gesund, can't stand, and that's those hoverboards and those I don't know what the right word. Those
electric scooters,
those
of
electric
all
scooters,
sorts.
which go like 40, 50 miles an hour. At least it looks like it to me. And we are talking about sakonis nefashos mamish. We're talking about kids flying around at high speeds, no helmets, completely out of control. I mean, they're in control, but it looks like they're out of control. How many calls have we gotten for overturned golf carts, for kids on skateboards without helmets, for people on bicycles, adults and children without helmets? We're talking about a relaxed country setting, people letting loose. There's an open road. People are in bungalow colonies. You know, sky's the limit. This is exactly the moment where everybody should stop, take a deep breath, and realize the danger or the potential for danger that's coming. Let's talk about golf carts.
So, I mentioned a few times today, but I can't help myself mention my father. And one thing he always talks about is these kinds of very dangerous vehicles. Let's call them vehicles. That's what they are. Scooters, hoverboards, all that. And my children like them as well. He doesn't like bands, right? He doesn't like bands because we get too extreme, we don't follow it.
Right.
But, and I probably will get killed for this, but a few years ago, there was, I won't say a name actually, so I won't get killed. There was a person riding a bike in Far Rockaway, real street, Virginia Street. I want to explain where it means to do something as opposed to just continue on your way. And this individual, he was riding down Virginia. It's a nice incline when you go down from Empire Avenue, for those that know. And he was moving a little too fast, maybe. And around the corner came a kid on a bike also, and they crashed into each other. Adult, young child, wasn't that young. He was probably 15 years old. Both went spilling on the floor. And Baruch Hashem, no tragedy. Some bruises and bumps and road rash, 100%. Why am I telling you this story, Catskills? The 14, 15-year-old was not wearing a helmet. Right? Again, another story in modern times. Running to shul, it's fine. Right to the white shul, right up by Empire, big deal. And it was obvious that, a little bit this way, 2 inches that way, and he hit his head. And again, we're dealing with a horrible story. So the story finished, but it didn't finish. The guy came home, and he said to himself, I know who that kid was. I'm not here to get him in trouble, but I can just continue on my way, because what happened? He got a little bump, he needs a little Band-Aid, he doesn't need Hatzalah, or I can make a difference. So that day, it wasn't a family that didn't have means, but I think he was making a point. He went down to wherever he went on Central Avenue, and he picked up a helmet. He went to the house that afternoon. He went to go give a hug to this kid to apologize. I'm sorry we crashed. The parents were there. And here you go. Here's the helmet. And at first, the kid looked, we don't wear helmets, But he was so overcome by the fact that this guy who crashed into him that could have said, what are you doing, kid? Punk, you crashed into me. And bikes
nice
these days.
gesture.
But what did he do? And I'll tell you, since then, I met the
something.
parents, and they said their kid still rides his bike as much as ever. Never, ever, ever without a helmet. I know, Bachram, they wear a hat sometimes. Same thing in the country. Figure out what to do with the hat, but he put the helmet on. I think that we need to make this, we can't make it mandatory. We can't tell people what to do with their children. But to allow your children to go onto those hoverboards, I don't know the exact speeds. They're very, very fast. Many colonies, there's 2 roads. There's the outer road, there's the inner road. You drive in, it's literally like you're zigzagging around.
People are
They're going
distracted.
faster than your car, by the way. And then speaking to myself, which I like to be very, very careful, how many drivers, and again, we're not going to give a wide-ranging talk on this today, all right, are on their phones, right? Present company included, right? So imagine the perfect storm here where you got a kid flying on the hoverboard, 50 miles an hour, doesn't have a helmet. The driver, he or she, is probably or likely, you ever go to a red light these days? Turns green, right? Why is everyone beeping, right? Try it on the way home.
Their heads are in the
right?
phone.
Because everyone's heads are in their phone. But imagine that scenario. It's a perfect storm of a tragedy waiting to happen. Khalila, Khalila. And if we don't talk about these things, yeah, it's a perfect example of do something or do nothing.
Right.
And if we do nothing, then Khalila, the next situation that happens, we could have prevented.
So we talked about hoverboards. We're talking about bikes.
We'll go back to golf carts for a minute.
And the necessity of helmets. So parents, safety, safety, safety. Preventable actions. Preventable. We don't want to
And by the way, I don't want to cut you off and make light of it, but I'm a parent. I'll say it straight, English. Yes, it's nerdy. And yes, people think it's nerdy. Or your child will tell you, I can't wear a helmet. I'm 15 years old. It's got to stop. Put the helmet on. Get a fancier one. Get a cooler. And by the way, there are the ones that don't go all the way this way, that way. They look much cooler. You can put stickers on it and marks on it and who knows what.
I think if the adults make it fashionable, the kids will follow. I think that right now we have to recognize that Hatzalah, and we'll be speaking to a lot of the leaders and coordinators of Hatzalah, how many bike accidents and hoverboard accidents and golf cart accidents and other accidents would have been preventable had people been wearing some protective gear, whether it's a helmet or something else. I think that it's so easy, it's not expensive. It requires a parent to get involved in the actions of their children, similar to the discussion we had about the pool, making sure that your kids are doing the right thing and putting them in a position to be safe. Let's talk about golf carts.
There's a young man in a community. Last summer, you spoke about the summer. We're going to the summer. We're so relaxed. We're calm. Let our guard down. Fast forward 2 months, Chaskel, to the end of the summer. Why am I saying that? End of the summer, it's like chaperein. Let's get a few more golf cart rides. Some people left. The colony is more empty, and the golf carts let loose. You think it's loose all summer? It's the end of the summer. Forget it. People are packing, flying, coming, going. Parents who normally wouldn't allow their children to have it. All right, we're going home tomorrow. I'm taking it with my friends. And then, again, I'm not here to give story time, but last summer as well, there was a child who went with other kids, and they weren't even so young, teenagers, flying circles. And I always like to say, it's all good until it's not good. And then it flipped over, and there was a horrific injury, and Baruch Hashem, the person is still recovering till today, this young man. Besides the physical impact, the emotional impact that it has taken on him, on his siblings, on his parents, who completely thought when they were called that they were arriving to something that was going to change their lives forever. In a smaller way, it has. But it's just such a basic that you wouldn't allow your 14-year-old kid to get in the car and drive down to Woodburn or drive down to Swan Lake because they asked you a few times. But the golf carts have made it out of the bungalow colonies. For anyone here, you know what I'm talking about. If you go to the country, there are golf carts on the road, no headlights. They shouldn't be on the road altogether. I'm not a policeman. That's not my job to tell you. But somehow, the golf carts, I'm not even talking about other states, but the golf cart phenomenon has exploded. So their rentals are so easy to get a hold of.
I want to jump in here for a minute because people don't realize the ramifications of law enforcement when it comes to a golf cart accident. Automatically, if something happens like that, Hatzalah will be called. Oftentimes, law enforcement will get involved. The first question that any police officer is going to ask is, who owns this golf cart? Who allowed this golf cart to be driven by an underage child? And then we're off to the races. Because then all the Askanim have to get involved. You're dealing with serious injuries. You're dealing with law enforcement for, again, an idea that could have been prevented. There was no reason in the world why this golf cart was being used by an underage driver. And now that it was being used by an underage driver, he brought all of his friends, or she brought all of her friends, and they overloaded the golf cart. They were driving too quick. They took the turn too fast. And we know exactly what happened. I cannot tell you how many times you hear on the Hatzalah radio over the summer, golf cart, overturned golf cart, overturned golf cart, overturned golf cart. So we have a message to the general public and to parents who are actually renting or owning these golf carts. What's our message to them?
Keep your kids off of them without an adult. Allowing them to drive is literally putting them on a mission for a tragedy. And I think that parents want to say yes. As parents who want to give our children, this isn't the way to do it. And I think if the parents would be Chaskel on not two, on one scene, one time, we're not suggesting ride-alongs now, on one scene, one time, where they saw the injuries and the chaos and the tragedies that result of a golf cart being driven by an underage child, they would never allow that child to do that again. And we just can't allow it to happen.
We can't share some of the pictures that we actually probably have, or Hatzalah has, because they're so awful and so horrific. Sometimes on some of those websites and some of the Jewish websites and the news sites, you'll see golf cart accident, Hatzalah did this, Hatzalah did that, they transported this, they went to that. Baruch Hashem, everybody survived, everybody's well. These issues are preventable if the focus of a father and a mother is safety first. Safety, safety, safety. I want to discuss one more, I think, critically important issue with you. that I think is really under-discussed and is so necessary for parents to recognize the true danger that they are putting their children in. And that is your newly licensed driver being given to the keys to your car on the Catskill roads. Now, when I was a kid, I remember, and it probably still has it, that the Vad Harabanim assered, they prohibited anyone under the age of 21, I think that was the number when I was growing up, from driving on country roads during the summer. Because the country roads are windy, they're new, they're strange, they're not easily, you can't navigate them so easily, they're dark, you don't know where the turns are. And I think that that effort that was made when I was younger had a real impact, where parents really took it seriously because the ramifications of ignoring that advice were so horrific and so dangerous. So we've gotten, and we've seen these calls over all the years of I won't say underage because they're obviously licensed. Parents are not going to give their children a car if they don't have a license. But what are some of the real world impact issues for a new driver who this year they got their license, or last year, and they never drove in the country before? They really have no experience driving in that setting. What are some of the real world impacts of that decision by a parent?
So skipping to the worst extreme, and I hate to be dark, is how many, not just upstate, but certainly upstate, how many fatal accidents there are. I'll just say it straight up, where Rahman al-Islam lives are lost because people are driving a vehicle in a place that they shouldn't be. But going back to what you said a couple of seconds ago, I'm a little younger than you, but when we were growing up, it was laharik al yavar Chaskel. I believe the rule is still there. I think Mayor Fishman from Agudas was very much behind it way back. There was no such thing. You did not get behind the wheel of a car, whether you were part of an off-day van going from Pennsylvania to the Catskills for your big day, or whether your family was there, whether you were at camp. It didn't happen. I don't know when it changed. I'm sure, like I said, that the rule is still there. But the fact of the matter is, from a ramification perspective, we have grown, Klal Yisrael. The amount of people that have 2 cars, 3 cars has grown. With car leases, it's more affordable. Many families have 2 or 3 cars outside their bungalows. And it's simply tempting and easier for everybody, for everyone above, kids, adults, to allow your kids to go out to visit their friends. Just go.
Pick up some pizza.
It is easier. The Uber Eats and all that stuff maybe doesn't work as well upstate. I'm being serious. Like, on a practical level, it's so convenient. I love having a child in my house that drives. There's less errands for me to run. But from a ramification perspective, what you said, anyone who has, forgive me, a brain on their shoulders knows that driving upstate is terrifying. And forget Hatzalah members. There isn't a person, I'm willing to bet, watching this today that hasn't passed by a Catskills accident, hasn't passed by an accident, not upstate, but certainly upstate. And I don't know the numbers. There are bigger Hatzalah experts out there who can tell us the exact numbers, but I guarantee you that thousands over the last many, many years were vehicles being driven by underage, by not underage, again, like you said, by children under the age of 21, even under the age of 18. They have a license. It's super exciting. I'll finish this piece by telling you again, my father taught me this, real stories, Boruch Ber. Nice fantasy things don't matter. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because there's a lot of driver services upstate, a point that you didn't mention, Chaskel, where, you don't want your son to drive, so there's numbers that go out. This guy, Yoel, Chaya, Moshe, he, she, that drive, they could drive you from one camp to another camp. You pay them like a from taxi. Did you know that most of those services are kids that are under 21, are kids that are under 20?
Interesting.
And last summer, I was outside a camp with my kids.
Uninsured, not
forget
licensed.
it. It's a rental, whatever, that their friend got for him.
Right.
I was outside a camp, and I watched with my own eyes. My kids remember this. And Baruch Hashem, somebody helped. You'll hear, and with this I'll finish. Where a vehicle pulled up. He wasn't driving slow. This is an attack on this one individual. He pulled up, and about 7 kids, were waiting. That feeling. They're
Piled
sneaking
in.
out of camp. They piled in, the proverbial pile in, literally, like the station wagon days. And it wasn't a station wagon. And they pile into this car. For sure, 5 guys in the back, so seatbelts wear or not wear, out of the question. There weren't enough seatbelts if they wanted. Not one guy in the front, two guys in the front. I saw it. Me and my boys were watching.
Three people, two seats.
He makes a U-turn, and he drove off like he was what's the guy Gordon? I don't remember. Jeff Gordon. He drove off like he was a NASCAR.
NASCAR driver.
If I tell you where this camp was, I don't want to. The hills over there are probably worse than anywhere. And Baruch Hashem, a Hatzalah member who walked out at the same moment, saw what I saw. Again, it's all about doing something, and it's a sad story. And I'm not even happy to recount it, but maybe it'll stop a parent this summer from allowing even that. And we're not saying lock your kids up, but do a little due diligence. He saw it. He went after. And again, he's not a policeman. He followed the guy down to the bottom of the road. I don't know, lights, sirens, I have no idea. He literally stopped the vehicle, and he pulled the kids out of the car. He sat there, and yeah, probably the kids in the car. Who's this loser father? Who is he? Whatever it was. And he spoke to the driver. The driver was 18 years old. Okay, the driver came to the Catskills just to make parnasa, and I hope that he makes parnasa. He probably was driving, admittedly in his own words, 60 miles an hour, and he just didn't know. It was his first summer doing this. It's a good way to make money.
That's what.
But that father, yeah, and I don't blame him. We all have to make parnasa. But that father decided, you know what? I don't want to hear on my Hatzalah radio in a half hour that there's a car flipped over on the highway or a car that crashed into a wall, that crashed into the bridge, and I'm going to make a difference. But I think people need to go into this summer realizing this is not a joke. And we can talk about it for 4 hours, but unfortunately, we don't usually do something until something happens or until it hits close to home. And I am begging people, my age, younger, older, do your part to not let this happen again.
Right. The community, Baruch Hashem, has grown. Klal Yisroel has grown. Hatzalah has grown. So the services are there for everyone. But there is an equal share of responsibility on parents, on counselors, on camp directors. There is an equal share of responsibility to make sure that we are all keeping our children safe. I want to end with one powerful story because I want the public to understand and recognize that these are real stories, these are real experiences. We're both Hatzalah members out in the field, out doing this for quite a number of years. One of the worst recollections I have of being 33 years in Hatzalah was at a time where I had to make a notification together with another Hatzalah member to a parent that Rahman al-Islan, their child passed away in a car accident on a summer night.
Nothing worse.
I don't recall anything worse in my career. Child with a group of other children were involved in a terrible overturn, car accident on a country road. Nebuch, child passed away, perished. Someone has to inform the family. And I was given that task to do it. Another member met me, sat down with the parents. There's no words. There are no words to describe the agony, the anguish, the regret. There are no words. And so we sit here today talking from the heart to Klal Yisrael and say, the Rabbi Shalom runs the world. The Rabbi Shalom is in charge. But we all have a responsibility. Shmartem es nafsho seichem. We have the responsibility to protect ourselves as best as we can. And everything that we have been discussing here today are all things that parents should and could do, easily attainable, to protect their loved ones, their most precious possessions. We talked about pool safety. We talked about golf cart and bike safety. We talked about now car safety. Every one of these issues that are every day from the beginning of the summer till the end of the summer, things that will confront a parent in the daytime and at nighttime with their parents. And the decisions that parents make can and will save their children's lives. And we are here today to encourage with every fiber of our being, with every ounce of kaiches, with every year and minute of experience that we've had in our careers, in our public life, to beg and urge parents to please be proactive, get ahead of the problem, make sure your children go to a pool that is protected and safe, make sure that your children are not given keys to the car, make sure that your children understand their responsibilities when they bike, when they go on a hoverboard, when they go on a skateboard. These are all critically important issues, and every single one of these tragedies could be prevented.
I think that I have nothing to add, Chaskel. You said it beautifully. I think the last word you said is what, honestly, probably has kept me up at night, I'm sure you, is that yes, we know what the Rabbi Shalom is in regards to this world, but it's preventable. And not to piggyback what you said, but in my life at Achiezer or in anything I've done, those, like you mentioned, have been the worst moments that I've ever experienced. And I want to reiterate as I close that that is the reason why I showed up here today. Because to face those moments, to walk into a home and tell parents that their child is not coming home is the most devastating event that could happen to an individual's life. And we need to do our part to make sure that that never happens again.
Thank you, Rabbi Bender, for your wonderful time, your words, your inspiration. Keep up your great work. Klal Yisrael appreciates it very much.
Chaskel, you're a master class, and you should keep doing these things for good occasions. We don't want to be here in the aftermath.